Good evening. I am Hitendra Padalia, Head Forestry Ecology Department, IRS, and I welcome all of you to my lecture on application of remote sensing GIS. And I have a little bit modified the title, the artificial intelligence in forestry. So let us first understand that which are the areas where we need remote sensing, or particularly satellite remote sensing inputs in forestry sector, forestry and ecology applications. So, National Forest Monitoring System is one which is the major user of the satellite remote sensing data. Forest Survey of India for forest cover monitoring, forest change monitoring, and also for forest resources assessment. Another area is that where data is used by different states in preparation of forest working plan, and as well as the management plans of the protected areas and wildlife sanctuaries, and also the Ramsar site and the biosphere reserves. And third area is the where the satellites derived inputs on carbon stocks by FSI goes to the international reporting to UNFCC. And another area is where now we are seeing that satellite remote sensing data is being used at some places where RED plus activity is going on in the country. And these are the initial studies where remote sensing data is used for monitoring, reporting, and verification process of RED plus project. You know, RED plus projects are basically talked about the reducing emission from deforestation and degradation. So for a transparent and accountable monitoring, this satellite data is very crucial. And another area is where we have to report the progress on conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. Yeah, where there also satellite remote sensing data based derived parameters are used as an indicator. For example, in meeting the targets and goals of the post 20 biodiversity Montreal Convention Protocol. Sustainable development goal is also another area where government of India submits its reports, and there also primarily inputs goes from Forest Survey of India only. But this is also an area where satellite remote sensing input from forestry and environmental sector is required. And also India, since the Paris Agreement, India committed to increasing forest cover by additional plantations and afforestation activities under nationally determined contributions. So under that also satellite remote sensing data is very crucial to show that how much progress we have made in terms of increasing additional tree cover outside the forest areas, as well as increasing the density of the forest by enrichment planting or protection measure inside the forest area. So everywhere you see that satellite remote sensing data is being used as a reliable means for monitoring the forest and bioresources. So why uh, 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 why we are actually focusing so much on this type of technology is clear from the previous slides. And so what are the preparations in these directions? So whatever so far we have done using earth observation data and remote sensing, that is already to a large extent users are using this technology for various purposes in the country. But then we have to actually now make many things. We have to required for operational purposes, and many satellites we require for R&D purposes. So there is a series of satellite Earth observation remote sensing sensors which are now either launched or being launched or planned. They are actually addressing the issues of the monitoring the forest and biodiversity and different aspects of vegetation. For example, the compositional diversity, the structural diversity of the ecosystem, or the functional diversity of the ecosystem. So you can have just listed a few very relevant satellites sensors here, but there is a series of sensors which is available for doing such kind of analysis. And among them are mainly the hyperspectral sensors are there, and then a series of microwave sensor working in SLP bands. These there lidar sensors are there which are working near infrared region, and then we have optical sensors which are now have become very you can say uh, uh, comprehensive in terms of the spectral regions. It covers right from optical, therm, visible, middle infrared region, a lot of important bands, including red S bands, SWIR band. A lot of SWIR bands are now been introduced in the optical remote sensing, and this all is helping actually now retrieving better information about the vegetation, its health and status. And then small satellites are being targeted for frequent monitoring. For example, Planetoscope is one constellations which actually Dove constellation, and it provides you the everyday basis the 3-meter resolution optical remote sensing data, and which is actually required for monitoring cases like encroachments and phenological changes in the forest areas. So a lot of sensors are planned. So in coming time, we will have a lot of diversity of data. We need skills and expertise to actually process and analyze this data and derive meaningful information. And another paradigm changes in the way we use the satellite and remote sensing and GIS data, particularly GIS layers, is that now it is not work standalone, but within the GIS, the data sources have increased a lot for forestry and ecological applications. And now, depending on the organization, they are working in India itself. Uh, like in IIRS, we work a lot with satellite remote sensing data and for vegetation assessment. And whereas if you go to the Wildlife Institute of India, they work a lot with satellite telemetry and sound acoustic techniques, camera trap techniques. And there are many other organizations, forest departments in the country, which are working with drones. So the point is that now the data sources of geospatial data has increased in forestry and ecological sector also, and a lot of ground-based sensors are coming. And IoT is the new things which is being implemented for synergizing the application of different sensors together with satellite remote sensing data observation, so that we can actually solve the environmental problems or find out the solution in this field. Then these are the a few trends which I have captured. For example, right now for in satellite remote sensing applications or from the space, we what is happening is one is that ISRO is collaborating with many premier space agencies and developing the advanced remote sensing sensors, and that is giving high quality data. And then another thing is ISRO itself doing a lot of projects for the country, for ministries, and putting all the data in the platform like Bhuvan and Vedas, and so making it easily available to the user and updating it over time. And the third thing could be the use of advanced AI and ML and DL techniques for generating the information. So no more the traditional statistical measures are now prevalent. It's been almost replaced by the AI method or physical based approaches. And there are a lot of data-driven approaches are being tried for generation of the automated generation of the various product in case of forestry and ecology domain also. And then the trend is that online data processing platform, large scale application. It is now that we see very often you will see that the applications are being developed for entire country level, which was not possible 15 year or 10 years before, to imagine that somebody is working on some aspect of particularly high resolution or modern resolution. People used to work on atmospheric science level course resolution over India scale, but now it has even the terrestrial ecologists are also working with at a country level data with the development of computing infrastructure, cloud infrastructures, and having the library of the various algorithm available within the cloud platforms. And then the time series data is now available from variety of satellites. Open archives are there. And the plus point is that when data density increases, the AI/ML algorithms give better information, better pattern recognition capabilities, and more insights into the ecological processes. Free open data has become very now almost a policy things that satellites are being launched and data is being given freely, and even processed data is being ARD analysis data is being given, or even now science product derived from the satellite remote sensing data are being given to the user, which was not the case earlier when only satellite data used to be distributed for ISS platform. There are platform International Space Station. Now many private in space stations are also going to come, and these space stations are also providing a new platform, particularly launching some a new kind of sensor and testing it, and at a low launching cost. They put it at ISS platform. Like JEDI LiDAR is right now working from ISS and has given valuable data over last 2019 to 2024 period on forest structure and height. And CubeSat, it's another area where a lot of development has taken place. So these all new developments are benefiting the forestry and ecological application to a great extent now. So one of the example I'm showing you from the Himalaya, high altitude Himalaya, and mainly the alpine meadows, subalpine forest here in western Himalaya, and we have done a very detailed mapping of the different vegetation types here. A lot of vegetation, conifers, broadleaves, grasslands, sedges are there, and so a lot of varieties there. You can just see the legend which I'm showing you here, and we have used machine learning and along with the optical remote sensing data, sentinel remote sensing data, and we have come out with a very high resolution. First time such a detailed vegetation mapping has been performed and tested in this region, altitude climatically sensitive regions. And now we have developed the approach, and then similar kind of work we require for other part of the country, which are equally important. So we have now the same kind of work what we were doing 15 years earlier. It used to take several months, and the quality of information was not up to this and level, and then also classes were very generalized, and so we have progressed a lot in terms of like generating high quality information, very detailed information, and accurate information. This is one example. And this is an approach we followed for this particular work, and wherein we have uh, laid out sample plot also across the entire alpine, subalpine regions while introducing biodiversity. And so forest cover mapping, vegetation mapping, classification is one application, but another major application is that to understand the biodiversity pattern. And that for that, actually, ground data is essential. Remote sensing alone cannot resolve these issues. So you need to have collected data very systematically following a very standard sampling design. So that is what we have done here, and involving the people from about 6 institutions in the region. We have collected a large amount of data on the population of the alpine plant species, something over 800 species of alpine and subalpine region, which are a lot of value in terms of medicinal plants, rare, threatened plant species, rare plant species. So a huge database we have developed in this project, and for we are further now analyzing this data for generating many value-added product for biodiversity. And one this slide shows the uh, and some of the salient outputs of this project, and you can see first time you will see such kind of outputs which tells you that how many number of species, plant species are present in per unit area basis. That is called alpha diversity. That too for a very highly inaccessible terrain, Himalaya, where it's not possible to have think of this such kind of information. And then beta diversity, where when you move across a gradient, let us say elevation, how fast the biodiversity changes. So that is what is beta diversity cluster we have identified in this region. And these are the unique information which was not available earlier. All has been done by geoanalytics has been used in this. And then phylogenetic diversity, a new expression of biodiversity in terms of identifying the sources of plants which are there, their origin. Some, that this region is having a admixture of plant species which has come from different places from Central Asia. Some has African elements, some are Sino-Tibetan. So when you do phylogenetic biodiversity, you actually add much more value to the biodiversity conservations. You don't simply think of protecting the number of species, rather you think of protecting the gene pool of a particular region, which is very important aspect activity for prioritization of biodiversity in this region. And then the another aspect is that from the 2D information to the 3D information about the forest, and that we achieved so laser, and lasers are on ground, those are called terrestrial laser scanner, and there are spaceborne lasers also. So just a minute, give me 1 minute. Hello, hello. हाँ सर, अच्छा मेरे लेक्चर में आता हूँ, ठीक है, ठीक है। So here you can see that actually lidar, if you place on ground like terrestrial laser scanners, it can give you very detailed information about the forest structure. That have a lot of value in terms of understanding the forest ecology from the point of view for considering forest as a habitat of birds, a variety of invertebrates, vertebrates, and mammals. So structure forest provides structure to these habitats, and understanding the structure in detail is very important. That is one aspect for habitat aspect. Another aspect is that with the carbon cycle, the carbon stocks is there, and also in terms of understanding forest in terms of the fluxes of water evapotranspirating from these complex forest structure, and the coverage or the opening of the forest canopy, the closure of the forest canopy in terms of the growth of the understory. All such things actually we need to go into more detail in these aspect in coming year. And terrestrial laser scanner data is now being collected. A lot of TLS are now being operated across country, we know, with different organizations, and collecting very detailed information for this purpose, including the generating the allometric equations for different species, which are further required for biomass and carbon stock estimations. Then another aspect is that viewing these forests through microwave, and using different frequencies. You use X band, C band, L band, and now P band also. We are looking the forest, and each wavelength is having its own uniqueness, and gives slightly different informations. This much diversity of observations has now happened in past 1 decade, that now we as researcher has to really think of integrating all this information from different sources of sensors, X band, P band, L band, and generating a integrated product, let us say for on biomass or carbon stock, or for example SAR is also used, SAR interferometry is used for forest structure and understanding forest structure and canopy height. So this is another area where earlier lidar used to be, people used to think that lidar only can give the canopy height information. But with the concept of SAR interferometry, now even you can generate canopy height information with advanced SAR interferometry. So the data availability now, because NISAR has been launched in July, and this is going to change the scenario in terms of data which will be available from SAR for forest disturbance studies, which are very frequent disturbances takes place, and in terms of ultimately mapping the biomass of the region. So these are the things which right now those who are actually working with in forestry, and especially with these kind of sensors, so very exciting time for them, because a lot of data they are going to get, a lot of help in their processing of the data they are going to get from the space agencies. It's not that they have to now struggle with the processing of the data. Processing platform is also envisaged under the NISAR missions, that kind of support will be provided, but only things that you have to really think of new applications and innovative applications with these data sets. So data sets will be in plenty, and cloud processing platform will be available with you. You need to conceptualize different applications. That is what is required. And then this is an example of what AI ML techniques can do in inventorizing the carbon stock. And this is a very high biomass area, Doon Valley, where we are situated. IRS is situated in Dehradun, and all around this Doon Valley, we have very high biomass forest in the valley bottom, and we have very low biomass in the Sivalik ridge. And you can see that these models captures this biomass distribution pattern so well that you actually get a first hand. You will appreciate that model has worked finely, and it has actually identified other features also, like very low biomass along the river courses here. You can see from the maps. So all those things is very useful, because now, since the methods have become so sensitive and capable, that if any change happens over here in terms of diversion of these forest patches, for example, for widening of the roads, or for example, construction of the airport, etc., and whatever forest patch will be diverted, the amount of carbon and biomass which will get lost during that process, that can also be calculated. So this is going to impact the our policies and our all programs wherever we are working for. And then recently we did a study on we thought, let us try another way of doing biomass and inventory, and we use the vegetation optical depth. This is a recently a new what you call parameter, which is derived from the satellite passive microwave satellite data element data. And this parameter shows high sensitivity to the biomass. This is called vegetation optical depth. And basically the vegetation, depending on its thickness, has different optical depth. So higher optical depth of the vegetation indicates higher biomass. It also relates with the moisture. So moisture height also is an indicator of high moisture also. So there are right now data is a coarser resolution, but it indicates that when we did this study with field measure biomass and this data, VOD data, and we found that over India, in the course of let us say 8 or 9 years, we have upward trend of uh, biomass increase in the country. So country is actually having a net sink of carbon, and that is also because Forest Survey of India is doing on the with the ground data also, and that data also shows that the in last 15 years we have something around 2.29 billion tons of carbon we have sequestered in our forest. So this is another alternative way of doing the above ground biomass mapping with the VOD observation derived from L-band passive radiometer data. And then the other aspect is that disturbance are widespread across the country. So India is a village economy, and we have a lot of villages alongside the forest, where they sometimes the cutting of the forest in terms of deforestation is taking place, and deforestation is also taking place due to urbanization, not only along the villages. And other aspect is that where livelihood is dependent on forest, for example, lopping of the trees for the fuel wood and for fodder, etc. So recently we have developed some methods like deep learning methods which can automate this process of mapping deforestation with the time series observation of, let us say, past 20 years, 30 years, in a very automated way, and in a very less time and very accurately. So this kind of new paradigm change has happened. The way we were actually earlier mapping the each scene we were mapping, and then individually, and then finally comparing the area change of forest cover area change. But that is not the that is the thing of past now. But still, FSI, Forest Survey of India forest cover monitoring, still needs to adopt these methods of advanced deep learning method to automate the process of forest cover monitoring at the country level. But apart from that, the minor small disturbances which takes place in the forest fringes also needs to be monitored. For example, lopping cases, I was mentioning that in those cases buffalo, and they live inside the forest area or forest fringes. And in the process of because they need a lot of fodder from the sal trees, so they lopped all the branches of the sal tree. And these trees which are there, you can see in the photograph, they are without branches, but there's a lot of foliage or leaves grows on these stand poles. And then there's a heavy loss of biomass also happens in terms of branches accumulate a lot of carbon and biomass. But overall, the biodiversity of the area get impoverished over time, and deep learning unit deep learning algorithm we used, and what v2 data we used, and we find out that how much area of the sal forestry is affected from the villages which are near to this forest range, and you can see that the lopping large continuous patches of the lopped trees are there. We have mapped in the forest ranges. So this is a very useful intervention because uh, we have a lot of livestock populations, and alongside villages we have a lot of process. So forest deterioration is degradation is very high, and so this kind of deep learning algorithm and high resolution data, they actually work very well with the high resolution data. And so this is the new opportunity with us, that we should exploit this potential of deep learning with the high resolution data, and to find out the disturbances which are happening in the vicinity of the forest. Similarly, the another study is here is Tripura state, and you can see how time series remote sensing data can give you an indication of what is the rate of growth of vegetation in a particular area, shown in green color, rate of disturbance, how frequently it cuts the area in shifting cultivation, and duration of growth, how much time the vegetation remain in shifting cultivation. Mm, So this explains the dynamics of the vegetation in a landscape where frequent cutting and regrowth takes place. And this can only happen when you analyze the time series data, every year data over a long period of time. So these are some of the new, very unique piece of information which is now being generated with satellite remote sensing data and advanced algorithms. And another important development which has had taken place in last 1 decade is that now the satellites remote sensing sensors have been able to detect very faint signals of chlorophyll fluorescence, which get emitted from the vegetation during the daytime, of course, when it is sun is there, because this fluorescence is triggered under the sunlight. And here the map which I'm showing you, you can very well appreciate here that the yellow color areas and are the areas which are dominant over Amazons, Congo, and the Southeast Asian region, where you have tropical rainforests which are highly productive and very high photosynthetic rate is there. On the other hand, there are other areas which are agriculture areas or low vegetation areas. They have slightly less photosynthetic activity. So this chlorophyll fluorescence is actually a very good indicator of the photosynthetic activity of the plants. And so this actually helps in actually capturing the not only the productivity trend, but also the stress on the vegetation, which could be due to drought or which could be due to other biotic factor, insect pest, and other phenomena also works in the forest areas. So this sun fluorescence, we normally use normalized difference vegetation index, NDVI, for such kind of activity, but now this is a new advancement over NDVI, that we can monitor vegetation more closely, because photosynthesis keeps on changes as the physiology of the plant is affected by various disease causing agent or stress causing agent. So this is a new development, and then uh, we are here working with the ED covariance flux towers, which measure the carbon and water, or even methane and other gases, exchange of other gases between the forest canopy and the immediate atmosphere which is there. And these data sets are collected at a very high speed, and collect, but also collected over a long time period. We have collected data over last 15 years, almost 15 years. And then this gives you very detailed insight into how forests are functioning. Particularly in the Himalayan foothills, we have two towers, one working in sal, moist deciduous, and other is plantation areas. And these towers has given us very meaningful information in terms of whether the forests are net sink of carbon or not, at what time they emit more carbon dioxide, and as compared to their uptake of carbon from the atmosphere, and what time they actually release more water into the atmosphere. So all such aspects of the Himalayan forest are today very well known to us, and mainly thanks to this kind of technology. And then further, we actually integrate these data sets with the satellite observations or the models, which are ecological models, which either simulate, for example, GPP, or they simulate NPP, or they simulate other aspect of vegetation and functioning. So these data sets from eco-covariance towers are very, very crucial for undertaking the landscape scale studies and calibrating and validating these process-based ecosystem models. And here the the plot which I am showing you can appreciate that the line which is below zero is actually indicating the absorption of the line, the shaded area below zero line shows the absorption of the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. In case of plantation, all the time they appears to be net sink of carbon. Whereas in case of a mature sal forest, there are some moments during the summertime when actually they respire a lot and they emit more carbon than what they absorb. So this is kind of this is just one example illustration, that how we can understand the pulse of the forest in a very detailed manner. And then this is a animation of you see that here we have modeled the fluxes, the primary production of the forest in the Himalayan foothills, the moist deciduous and dry deciduous forest, right from Uttarakhand to Himachal and going up to the Jammu and Kashmir. And along the foothills, how forest actually over the different months in a year, how what time they sequester carbon, more carbon, what time they sequester less carbon, what time they remain relatively dormant. So all such aspect of forest functioning, we have been able to understand based on this modeling. And so such kind of products is available from let us say from modis, but they highly underestimates the quantity of carbon which is being assimilated in this region by the forest. And as a result, we need to have our own calibration, validation, and development of model for Himalaya, because the functioning of the Himalayan vegetation is very unique because of their functional traits are sometimes very unique, and leaf longevity and many other aspects are quite different from rest of the subtropical and temperate regions. So therefore need a specific treatment for modeling such type of vegetation. And then one important aspect which is now becoming a global attention, that the fire risk is increasing, and because of the warming, the fire risk is increasing a lot, and fire frequency, its duration, and its intensity all are on rise. And here in Himalaya, particularly states Himachal, Uttarakhand, and including Nepal, all these places are highly vulnerable to forest fire in summer forest fires. And the satellite observation here, we are routinely using thermal remote sensing to monitor these fire flame, active flame, and as well as the areas burnt by the fire very efficiently. And forest department is really using this time information for its control and suppression of the forest fire. Apart from that, the emission which takes place from during the fire in terms of greenhouse gases and aerosols and other black carbons soot. So all those also are now being satellites like Tropomi satellites gives a lot of information about these atmospheric constituents of the emitted from the forest fires and their transport, which is happening from the foothills to the higher Himalaya, going up to the snow and glacier areas, can be monitored. And so this is a new type of development, particularly with respect to understanding what is happening in Himalaya, how fire is affecting our ecosystem or health of the Himalayan ecosystem is being addressed. There is a Callisto mission, Calypso radar is there, and that provides a vertical profiling of the atmosphere. And during the forest fire, when smoke travels from the foothills to the higher Himalaya, if you take this data, this really shows you that up to what height these smokes carries these black soot and other dust and other particles, and it is estimated that about 8 to 10 kilometer height it takes when it's, and so it means 8 kilometer height is the average height. So even the fire, the emission from the forest fires goes, and the smokes goes beyond the Mount Everest. So this is the kind of impact this forest fire is having, and this has been addressed by the combination of atmospheric lidar, and then there are imaging spectrometry, which gives the chemical emission information, and then thermal remote sensing, which gives you the active fire locations, and optical data, particularly the SWIR band data, gives you very good information about the burnt area. So forest fire prevention and management is being now, this type of remote sensing satellite data is becoming very, very crucial. Then the other aspect is that everybody want to know what will be the future of Himalaya in terms of because warming is happening here, and also human dominance and footprints are increasing in these regions, and in mind what will happen in this region in terms of because we have a lot of forest here. Himalaya, we have Himalaya region about 30% of forest cover. Country's forest cover is in the Himalayan region. So Himalaya contributes a lot to the country's forest cover, and in terms of carbon stocks, and in terms of water coming from these ecosystems, river systems, and so it has a lot of contributions to not only India but countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh and other countries are dependent on this system. So always there is a questions that how the biological part of the system will behave, particularly the forest, how they will behave in the future climate scenarios. And so currently the efforts are under being taken. There are models, global models are there. They are being now downscaled at resolution of something 10 kilometer, such as we have done in case of community land model, and at 10 kilometer resolution we are trying to uh, calibrate the model for the present situations, and then we are also simulating the model scenarios for the future situation, for let us say by the end of the century or mid century. So that we need to have a generation of scenarios, but at the background it takes a lot of effort in terms of generating a lot of in situ database on plant functional traits of these regions. We are collecting a lot of data because there is a lot of diversity in forest types also in the Himalaya region. This is not only one type of forest. Had it been only one type of forest in entire Himalaya, it would have been very simple to project what is going to happen with respect to forest composition, structure, and functional functioning. But because there are a lot of forests, lot of diversity, so really it is very complex things as far as the understanding the Himalayas forest type response to warming conditions or another and other aspects, increasing concentration of CO2 in the atmospheres and pollution and etc. things, forest fires things. So but still we need some scenario. So this scenario shows that actually if you only consider the warming scenario and you only consider the increase in carbon dioxide concentration scenario, leaving aside other important aspect, for example tourism growth, and for example grazing, for example, forest fires. So it shows that in this scenario, the carbon stocks in Himalaya is going to increase. I mean, Himalayan forests are going to take advantage of, particularly the temperate region, going to advantage of the increasing carbon dioxide concentration. As you know, that the forest actually, for food for the forest is the CO2. CO2 is the main thing which drive the photosynthesis here. So in coming scenarios also that forests are going to get benefited with increased warming and increased carbon dioxide concentration, but still the model we have not considered the grazing part, the fuel wood, fodder wood collection, the degradation, the human impact. So if those impacts also, because they are at work at a local scale, at a smaller scale, so models are need to be further improved, and then we need to see what happens when we disturb the Himalaya. Human footprint increases and disturb the Himalaya. So right now, no, except climate, no other disturbance factors is considered, and it shows that the overall vegetation, carbon stocks, and growth will increase. So these are the kind of work is being taken up right now. I have just shared you a few examples that what we are thinking about the in terms of application, in terms of new application, or also in terms of how we are utilizing the advanced techniques like AI or advanced ecological modeling for purpose of better understanding of forest ecosystem in Himalaya. So most of the studies we do at IRS on Himalaya only. So our researchers, PhD students also most of the time they take their PhD work also in Himalaya. So a lot of knowledge we are generating over the year about the forest ecosystems. So thank you very much. This is the I think the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to write your share your questions or queries in the chat box. So I will be happy to answer your queries and questions. Hmm. Okay. So I'm seeing that one question has been asked. I am performing green cover analysis using list for imagery, for which need to correct it atmospherically. Could you tell me which tool I can use for this? I tried grass GIS but did not work. Okay, good questions. But you know that for uh, correcting the atmospheric effect on any satellite remote sensing, optical remote sensing image particularly needs a lot of parameter actually. You need some of the parameter you need from the data provider itself. Uh, and some of the parameter some data you need to collect uh, or you need some atmospheric model which is already available. Okay, so right now I think for list 4 correction of list 4, I don't think there is any specific model is there. The existing models don't take the list 4 data as such. For example, as you see that there is a flash algorithm in the INVI, which takes which corrects different sensors, particularly hyperspectral sensor and some of the multispectral sensors. So the reason is that we have the data list for data, particularly, it's a high resolution image, and data is only 3 bands or 4 bands data. Data itself doesn't have any water absorption bands. Normally, atmospheric correction process will be better if the data itself has certain atmospheric correction bands and aerosol correction bands, which nowadays, if you see that Sentinel data is having aerosol correction bands, and there are switch bands also available. So the normally when you have the purpose that the objective that you want to give the data a reflectance corrected data, then you add those kind of band there, or you have a very rigorous atmospheric correction procedure. But in case of list 4, we don't have such type of atmospheric correction procedure our own. So then how it can be done? Then the only thing is that to the maximum you can do, if there is some kind of haze is there or some kind of dark object subtraction techniques is one which is normally used to minimize the haze effect from the images. And then further, the correction of reflectance of radiance of each of these bands actually, and then that part is really tricky here, because many times the list 4 scenes are not nadir collected. They are off nadir most of the time because these are high resolution images, and hardly they will nadir collected scenes. So so you have to be very careful here, that since you are doing this atmospheric corrections, and it need lot of data in terms of the path radiance, the transmittance data, the top of the atmosphere information. So all those things, if available, if you just look the atmospheric correction formula which is there, and the input parameter it needs for calculations. So you will find that in case of list 4 we don't have those all those things. Therefore I don't think that you'll be able to do the atmospheric correction properly for based on the model which are there. Or of course, if you want to do some empirical methods are also there. Then for that, on the time of pass of the images from your area, you need to go to the ground and collect certain observation of the atmosphere, optical depth of the atmosphere, etc. And then those empirical methods can be used to rectify the image to some extent. Okay, so for example, in case of word view data, they provide reflectance data. So if you plot the spectral signature, it comes very good because they have designed the sensor in that way, and so that's why they provide it, and they develop the atmospheric correction algorithm. So grass, I don't think will have this for LISPO. The other question is it mandatory that GPS will increase, GPP will increase in initial part? No, not mandatory. I hope you are asking your question for my last slides. So normally it is, what is being observed in a higher latitude, that particularly in temperate region, that the warming and increased concentration of CO2 is actually causing the particularly increased concentration of CO2 is causing carbon dioxide fertilization effect. So CO2 fertilization effect is that where when concentration increases, actually plants starts doing more photosynthesis and producing more GPP. So that happens actually if you are in the temperate climate. But if, for example, some drought is happening or prolonged dryness is there, then it is not necessary that the GPP will increase. That is what is called browning nowadays. Browning is happening in many of the tropical forests, particularly. They are suffering from browning phenomena. Then the other question from Aditya Sharma, is asking what ecological variable can be extracted from dam. So dam is, the digital elevation model is basically, particularly in the Himalayan context or in mountainous context, dam is a very useful information. And based on dam, some of the things like, for example, one example I can give you, topographic wetness index is one very useful parameter, and it has been observed that topographical wetness index, it relates because it relates with the moisture retention in the watershed. So it also relates very well with the species diversity which is present there. So it means where the topographical wetness index is high, there will be a higher number of species, plant species, as compared to the low topographical wetness index, which indicates relatively drier area. So this is one example that I have given you. Then another question is Rohan is asking, I am looking for tomato cultivation and transportation. How could I use satellite data? Which satellite data could be used? Okay, so for agricultural crop studies, we have satellite remote sensing data. One is the list for satellite data that is available at 5.8 meter resolutions. But if you feel parcel is large or farm is large, then and you are only cultivating tomatoes in that area and not mixing with other species. So even 10-meter sentinel data can also give you the idea that how much is the crop acreage, we call it. So basically, remote sensing is used at first place to differentiate different crop type, and then if we are able to differentiate very well with high accuracy, then we are interested in actually determining the crop. Acreage means how much area of that crop is under cultivations, and then of course, once the technique is established, then every year you can plan for, let us say, for 10 years, you can plan that where is the market and how much is the demand in the market, and how, based on the demand, how much tomato you can sell to the market. You can determine that how much cultivation need to be done in that area, and for that actually you can use satellite remote sensing data, that how you can improve the acreage of that tomato cultivation in the area, and the condition which is suitable for tomato conditions can also be identified in the area, and accordingly you can increase the area of tomato cultivation, and its timing also you can basically determine based on the production which happens over time, and market situation. So all those things are now being done for many, particularly for large crops, but for vegetables and for these things also it can be done. Even now drone is being used for such purposes. Okay, satellite data, if you use for example even higher frequency satellite data, kinetoscope data is there, 3-meter resolution data is there, that can be used because that is freely available. So for, but at least for the tropical part, so this data can be used, and every day that image is provided, so this can give you very updated information. So I think there's no more questions from me. So thank you very much for your attention and patience. Thank you.